Okay guys, this is the first time we're doing this in West London. It's the first time I'm actually doing it on my own, so I'd appreciate if you guys can give me some support, because I've normally got Aaron or Lester or even Archie with me. Archie's been apart for a while from doing the workshops. He just for the camera, Archie C was the one who kind of founded it. So yeah, got to give him a bit of credit. Which was over 8 years. He kicked it off over 8 years ago. Okay, he was the one who went and hired the venue, got us all rolling 8 years ago, and he's still here. He's still here. Okay. Right. Slight introduction. Okay. One of the things what I want to do is I've got, just to let you guys know, I've got a preamble which is going to run every week. This is an introduction to what's going to happen, so you get an idea of the timeline of this and the structure that we're going to do. We will be leaving today with some homework, okay, and or a task, whatever language you want to give it, and we will, because of we're a group at the moment of what's that, 10, 12, roughly about 15 people. What we'll do is we will have a go at some of this on a little page of it. Okay, so this is week 1. It's a basic text workshop. It's set out over 16 weeks. Okay, the format of this weekly workshop will be reading and highlighting some chapters from the 6th edition of the basic text, and then we'll be sharing what we've found. We're lucky because we have some experience in there from some guys who've done it before. As I say, Archie's done it before, Steve's done it before, Sion's done it before. I can't remember, Lee, did we do anything similar? Done a bit. Yeah, so there are some guys in there with experience. Thomas, you attended a couple, didn't you? Okay. Right, this is you guys have a sheet of paper in front of you, and what it says is suggestions and directions. Because one of the things that came out from doing this workshop, by going through the book, what we discovered was, and I think there was a time when myself and Sion and 8 other people were sitting in a room doing it, was that we found it very difficult to kind of separate in the basic text what was a suggestion and what was a direction. Because what started to come up was there's some things which it says you must do, and it says some things it tells you to do to the programme. And I think because addicts are all different within themselves, it also suggests stuff, because it also suggests some stuff in the basic text which doesn't necessarily apply for me, but it might apply for you. And that's one of the things, I think the problem that a lot of people find with the basic text is that because it tries to be one size fits all, the problem with it is we have a tendency as addicts to look for the differences and not the similarities. So one of the main things with the work you get to have with this book is discovering the similarities. Okay. One of the other things, besides finding out what a must word is, we'll also be looking at, there's questions in the book, because one of the things which we found that when we went through the book was there's some people who read the book but they don't necessarily ask themselves the questions, because there's questions in the book to ask yourself so you can reflect. And some of those questions are based for people who appear to be just using or finished using, and some people are further down the road, because they tried to, when they first got the book together, they tried to make it a basic book just with some basic answers, and they were doing the best they can. One of the things I like to point out with the basic text is the actual size of it. That's what the basic text actually is. It's only It looks frightening, but that bit's all stories. And in every single book, the stories change except for one story. That one story in the book is Bob B. I found the only NA meeting in the world. You know, that's the only constant story. It's been in every single basic text, and that's one of the books one of the stories we'll get you guys to have a look at a little bit later on, because this, like Bob B's in California, is 54 years clean. And what we found when we did this before is that when we went through it, it was amazing how this black guy in California from 54 years ago, how much I relate to him, and how much some of the guys from over the East End could relate to him, his story. And that's one of the things we'll be doing later on, is going through that story and just highlighting what I relate to and what you guys relate to. Okay, thus I digress. Right. The other thing, before we go straight into it, let's check the time. Yeah, before we go straight into it, we're going to have plenty of time to do this. And there's going to be some questions as well. I'm going to have like 10 minutes worth of questions, so you guys can ask questions so we can kind of move forward. The other thing with this as well is, with this workshop, what we're also going to be doing is, some of you are on Facebook, some of you are not on Facebook. Those that are on the social networking site of Facebook, we're going to have a closed page, which is a private page, anyone who's joined. And then what we're going to do is, in case you miss a week and can't get it, we're going to put up what the task is on the page, so you can go to the page and look at it. If you're not on Facebook and you need it emailed to you, please leave your email address. Just don't want to do don't want to do individual emails to a lot of people. When we can do one hit, I'm lazy at it, do one hit and cover all. So that way, if you've managed to, if you're at work one week or got to look after the children or something, you can see what work there is and have a go and get the result and keep going with it. Just because you miss a couple of weeks or a week doesn't mean that you're unable to attend. One of the things which has been evident in doing this, I don't know if it's necessarily evidence to this book study, but one of the things we discovered before that, and Sion's the one who probably backed me up with this, we did this in a very experimental stage, okay, when there was 8 of us sitting in a room having a go with it. And out of those 8 people, there's one who didn't really interact with us, and he's still all over the place. There's another guy who wasn't honest at the time and wasn't saying he didn't understand things, and he's still having a bit of difficulty with it. But the other 6 guys who did engage in this, all their lives have developed, and they've really grown, really developed unbelievably. They've learnt a lot of management skills and learned how to focus a lot more. And also, what they've been able to do is they've learned how to self-educate, because that's what one of these workshops does. Like, for example, and I'll start with this before we do any questions and answers. One of the examples I'll give is, what we'll do is each week we'll pick a word out of the reading that we've got. We'll make it simple this week. What we'll do is we're picking the word dilemma. Okay, now what happens is loads of people seem to know what dilemma means. I'm not going to ask these guys here because I know they're focused on it. I'm going to purposely pick on somebody who may not necessarily have the understanding of dilemma from doing a workshop before. So, Jenny, do you mind if I ask you what dilemma is? What dilemma means to you, your understanding of it?
A dilemma for me is where I'm trying to make a decision, which, if I've got 2 options, my dilemma is, and I can't choose between the 2, what do I do for the best? What would the outcome of this be? What would the outcome? Dilemma is a confusion, not an uncertainty.
That's a very, very good answer, and to kind of back that up, because that's kind of close to what it says on the pamphlet, and quite close to my understanding as well. Archie, would you ever look in the thesaurus and look at the word dilemma and see the associated words? Now, I haven't done this with dilemma, so what Archie's going to say, I don't know what comes out.
Do you want me to read it verbatim as it says in here? Just read that.
Please.
Right. A dilemma, a noun, causing a dilemma, informal, catch-22, difficulty, doubt, embarrassment. Informal, fix, a jam, a mess, a pickle, apply to predict. This is thesaurus.
Yeah.
This just gives you alternate words for the same
Exactly.
thing.
And that's what, this is a point that I'm trying to come to.
Yeah.
Now, for me, with my education and what I've learned, yeah, we'll do that in 1 second. We might as well look it up though. From my education and what I've learned, okay, was what Jenny said could have confused me with the two possible outcomes. I'll get confused easy. But as Archie went through the thesaurus and he said catch-22, I got it.
Yeah.
Pickle, yeah. So, pickle. It's a pickle, it certainly is.
It's like back into a corner.
Back into a corner. See, it's, and as Jenny said, the understanding of dilemma which you got from the dictionary is two possible outcomes. Neither is what you would choose. No whispering under your breath. Okay, so each week we're going to pick a word. Okay, and we're going to go through that. Dave, you was going to do a reading for us, and then what we're going to do is we're going to give examples of. Please give out the reading of
Okay,
dilemma.
this has actually surprised me. Dilemma. Position presenting choice between equally unwelcome possibilities.
Equally.
Equally unwelcome.
Okay.
No, I didn't know that. That's
So they're both shit then.
yeah. You need dilemma. You don't know which one to take. You don't know which one to shit it.
Yeah.
Don't want either of them. You've got to pick
But
one.
you've got to pick one.
Don't want either, but you've got to pick one. Okay, this will get more interesting as it goes on, because what I found was a lot of my understanding, a lot of my learning, because I didn't do much schooling, came from adverts, came from posters, come from television, and they used them in their own way, which I took on board. That's just me, for myself. Some people have different educations and they have a lot more clarity around it, and even then it can be distorted. Dave, if you could go to page 18 in the basic text. Okay.
Such a new one.
No, it's page 18 in the basic text. Right. Now, if you would start reading from the first paragraph in at the bottom of the page.
There are some of the questions.
Yes. If you could read to the group. Are you guys ready for this?
How far down?
If you could read it up to step 1.
These are the questions we've asked ourselves. Are we sure we want to stop using? Do we understand that we have no real control over drugs? Do we recognise that in the long run we didn't use drugs, they used us? The jails and the institutions take over the management of our lives at different times. Do we fully accept the fact that our every attempt to stop using or to control our using failed? Do we know that our addiction changed us into something we didn't want to be? Dishonest, deceitful, self-willed, people at odds with ourselves and with our fellow man. Do we really believe that we have failed as drug users? When we were using, reality became so painful that oblivion was preferable. We tried to keep other people from knowing about our pain. We isolated ourselves and lived in prisons that we built with loneliness. Through this desperation, we sought help in the Alcoholics Anonymous. When we came to NA, we are physically, mentally and spiritually bankrupt. We have hurt so long that we are willing to go to any lengths to stay clean. Our only hope is to live by the example of those who have found our dilemma and have found a way out. Regardless of who we are, where we come from, or what we have done, we are accepted in NA. Our addiction gives us a common ground for understanding one another. As a result of attending a few meetings, we begin to feel like we finally belong somewhere. It is in these meetings that we are introduced in 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous. We learn to work the steps in the order that they are written, to use them on a daily basis. The steps are our solution. They are our survival kit. They are our defence against addiction, which is a deadly disease. Our steps are the principles that made our recovery possible.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, so Dave's read that reading for us, and what I really want to do is to jump into it. I'm going to explain this sheet that you've got in front of you briefly, and then just in case some of you guys want to ask some questions, we'll go through a stage of having 5 minutes where you can ask some questions about what we're going to do, and then we're going to have a go at it. Okay, because it's an interactive workshop, I'm going to get you guys to contribute. I'm going to give some examples, or get some of the guys who have previously done this to give some examples. Okay, and then we're going to take it from there. So we're going to try and fill this one in, and we've got basically 30 minutes left of the workshop. We're going to try and fill this small one in while we're here, so you've got some experience of what to do for your next one, because that's how we do this. And it isn't hard work, it just seems very complex with all this information which we're putting down on you guys at the moment. Okay, so...
Sorry, Frankie, quick question. This sheet that we're looking at now, this was the one that was posted on the Facebook page?
That's correct, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and another thing about this sheet as well is you'll see that it's got suggestions and directions highlighted in yellow. Okay, and you've got another one in, is that pink or red, I'm not sure. And then you've got, which is the must, and then you've got the questions highlighted in green. You don't have to stick to those colours.
But do we have to differentiate between suggestion and direction?
No, you put them under the same colour.
Okay.
You make your own decision, because one of the things we found when we was doing the workshop was that to separate suggestion and direction, you can lose at least 15 minutes with disagreeing with someone else on what a suggestion is or what a direction is, which is not the point of it. The point of it is just get the information of what you do for your recovery. Okay, so we've got a suggestion which is to put forward a consideration, yeah? So, what a suggestion being is, guys, these are complaining over here because they can't hear. So, right, so without any distractions, yeah? Just want to make a suggestion that whilst we're going through this, we don't talk. Suggestion, I've worked that into it. If you could consider doing that, doesn't mean you have to do it, yeah? So that's a suggestion. A direction is a course or a line along which a thing or a person or a thing moves. You know, a direction, for example, a direction is basically a certainty. In my understanding, if you ask me where Ladbroke Grove Tube Station is, I can direct you there. But if you ask me where Ladbroke Grove Tube Station is and I suggest you go down there and do a left, it might mean I'm not 100% sure. Okay, so what might work for me might not work for you, so that's why there's implied suggestions. There's something that you can take on board. You have to get your own definition. You have to get your own understanding of it for it to work for you. Okay. Must. We have must words. We won't necessarily have them in this passage this week, but a must word, for example, is essential. Okay. Like for the example we use, which we have on here, is like, for example, essential and necessary are must words. There's more must words in the basic text, and we will find them. The guide we use is I must breathe. It's essential that I breathe, and it's necessary that I breathe. They're like commands. One of the things we discovered is, because you hear a lot of people say the program is a suggested program. Well, when we read the book, okay, when we start to go through the book, one of the things we discover in the book when we open it, and this is the first edition they did it in, Narcotics Anonymous, this is the 6th edition, is after you get past the introduction reading, it says our program, Narcotics Anonymous, it actually says in the book, it's the program. The program of Narcotics Anonymous is in the basic text. So it's what we kind of discovered. It might seem a bit pedantic or a little bit geeky to some people, and that's something they can look at within themselves. But the programs within the book, and we've discovered that in the book there's some things it says you must do for recovery. So, and we'll get to that. That is the page before chapter 1, Who is an Addict?
Roman numerals 26.
Yes, after Roman numerals 26. So, cool. So, right, can you guys comfortable with that? Can we go through? We kind of have a rule, and that is you're allowed 2 questions each. We do that for a reason, because what we've found in some of these workshops is that some people haven't spoken at all, and other people ask questions more. It's just how the nature of human beings are. So, has anyone got a question? Good.
I've got a question. In that passage, I can't see any suggestions.
In what passage?
In the passage that we just read.
Okay, we'll find some then. Thank you for encapsulating the whole workshop, because that's what it's about. You've just said it exactly. So Lee, before we jump forward, let's stick to the first paragraph. Okay, what's the obvious thing in the first paragraph? We've got 3 things we're looking for. Questions, yeah, exactly. Now, if we go back to the reading, what it says there, these are some of the questions we asked ourselves. Now, I don't know how many of you with doing step work or reading this basic text was told by the person they was working with to go and ask yourself. What I was told was that I was sick and I needed to, I couldn't rely on my thinking. But the book says something different. It tells me to go away and ask myself. Because I'm trying to find root honesty. I'm trying to find honesty in myself. So I have to ask myself some questions. I can't necessarily be someone who just follows direction. Otherwise, you're leading me. I'm being someone who's being led along.
Yeah.
And you can't carry the addict. The addict has to want to change. So with the questions, as we'd start highlighting them, I'll pick green, but one of the questions which we ask ourselves, this is the task that you guys are going to have for when you come back for next week. Questions are always answered with written answers. What? It's
So
a
you
question.
want us to answer these questions?
Yeah, the questions in the basic text that we do, and there are not that many of them, there just is a lot in one hit in the first bit, is whilst you're away this week, when you come back for next week, can you answer these, can you write down your answers for these questions?
Okay.
On page 18 and 19.
Page 18 and page 19. So the first question is, are we sure we want to stop using?
So I am sorry, Frankie. So if the questions are answers,
All suggestions as well, aren't they? Sorry.
do they need to be quick answers or paragraphs?
No, I'll tell you what we do,
Yeah.
just let you know. Is maybe I've gone a little bit too far too quick, but what it is it says, are we sure we want to stop using? That's a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I will do is I'll highlight that because it's a question. Okay, when you go home, you can answer that question. You ask yourself that question: do I really want to stop using, considering what I have to do?
Well, yes, I do.
And it might be, yeah. Well, the answer's yes. Then.
What I'm saying is, would we have to bring the answers here?
Yeah, next week.
Yeah. Okay.
I've got, just sorry to interrupt.
So I do this the question and answer bit.
I've got a question. What is this workshop for?
What is this workshop for? The whole purpose of the workshop is go through the basic text, which is only half the basic text because we're not going to do the traditions, and we're going to find out the suggestions and the directions from the basic text of the programme.
So it's kind of like it's like a secret code to make me go further. To get to, to understand them.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with a secret code, but what?
I mean, lots of people wouldn't actually break it down into these little sections, right? It's like a Archie. Can you answer the question?
Yes.
Will you answer the
Yes.
question?
Okay. So you've got mine. This is a basic text.
Yeah.
This is a basic text is a study book.
Yeah.
It's a book to be studied. Since we've had the green and gold step working guide, people have moved away from what this is.
Mm.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go through it, we're going to use it as a study book, and we're going to do the exercises that lie within it. And the only way you can do that is by studying it page by page. And you find out, this is also an instruction book, how to live recovery. So what we're doing is, as we go through 16 weeks of this workshop, we will work through the steps.
Brilliant. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you, Archie.
Thank you.
Not a problem, but just before you ask me, I just want to say thanks, Archie, because I was feeling a bit on top of myself, and I think Archie really encapsulated that well.
Yeah, for sure.
And was that okay for you?
Around what I was doing here.
Yeah,
I mean, I know why I'm doing it, you know what I mean? But I wanted clarity.
Was that okay for you?
That was perfect. That's very clear now, yeah.
Okay, thanks. Natalie.
And it's the purpose so that we kind of understand what is, and if it's, so we can be free thinking and we can be clear about what it actually fundamentally means. Is it
Yeah,
that?
well, so that you actually understand when if you have a question or thought around step one, it explains it to you in the simplest terms possible.
Right. So that we can be free thinking, but we're not being led, but we're kind of, it's...
Yeah, you have to have your own understanding. You come to your own understanding. The programme by the guide, as Archie clearly put it in the book. It's really, really helpful because it gives you direction to what the actual step is. You good with that?
Yeah,
Right.
thanks.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I sort of have a question.
Come on then.
So, just thinking about it. So, as we go through the steps,
Right?